1 year ago, I was eating a McDonald's hamburger when I thought to myself, I wonder if I'd be able to grow this hamburger into a plant. And I know you can't plant a burger patty and grow more burgers, but you can take the vegetables inside and plant those to see if they grow. But there was only one problem. McDonald's doesn't even put many veggies in their burgers, and the ones they do put, you likely can't grow. But then I got an idea. I ordered tomatoes on my burger and decided that would be the heart of this experiment. And so I'm sure you can guess that after I finished my meal, my plan was set, I was all in, and I was gonna attempt an experiment never before attempted. I just wasn't sure if it was actually gonna work because who knows what Mickey D's does to those tomatoes. But we weren't gonna know unless we tried. So when I got home, I got straight to work. I got 3 pots, placed 1 tomato in one, 2 in the second, and 1 in the third. I wanted to be safe and give us options just in case something happened and 1 or 2 of them didn't grow. But the good thing about tomatoes is they're quite agile, and in my experience, anytime I've ever planted tomatoes, it's almost always from the fruit rather than just a seed pack, and they grow really quickly. So finally, all my tomatoes were in the pots, all covered up with a nice layer of soil, and to give them an even better shot at growing, I placed a mini greenhouse around them with an old water bottle. The waiting was hard, but if it taught me anything, it's that patience is totally worth it, and you gotta be careful of critters. Yes, it's true. On day 4, I had to battle raccoons. They almost got to my Mickey D's tomato plants, so it's a good thing I put those mini greenhouses on them because they couldn't get them that way. They were kinda cute though, I gotta admit. And so, a few more days of waiting led me to day 7, where I walked outside to do my daily check and I saw little tomato sprouts. And not just regular ones, they were purple. That I've never seen before, and I immediately wondered why they were that color. I wasn't sure if they would then start to grow arms and legs. I was just excited that the first experiment of this kind was actually kind of working. I finally felt like this adventure was gonna be worth it. But the real question was, were we actually gonna produce our own McDonald's tomatoes? Well, time started to pass, and quickly. Week after week, I was pretty shocked to see that everything was going according to plan and my tomato plants were getting quite large. And soon, before I knew it, the entire summer passed and winter was fast approaching in Canada and we didn't get any tomatoes. But if you know me, then you know I didn't give up there. I knew I would need to bring them inside to live out the winter, otherwise they would die and they wouldn't grow successfully at all. So I let them sit there outside for another couple weeks and then, dreadfully, brought them inside, washed the roots with soapy water to remove any pests, and repotted them into small pots where they lived in my grow box for 8 months. Kind of dormant, but also kind of growing. It was very unique, to say the least. I had never tried growing tomato plants indoors in the winter before, so I was determined to keep them alive, and my grow box actually did help me because finally, that entire summer passed, and this is what our tomato plants looked like. They even had little flowers growing where the tomatoes usually start growing out of, but there were no tomatoes. So I was excited that this summer came back around, and as soon as I put them outside in May, I was pretty confident that they would finally start to grow. I repotted both plants into one bigger pot and finally brought it back outside to live in the summer heat. A few weeks passed, I kept checking on them, and then I realized that we ran into a huge problem because I think I killed the plant. It literally looked like it was dead. There were no sprouts anywhere, and I guess I may have stunned the plant from bringing it inside, waiting so many months, and then back outside. It's not my fault I live in Canada, okay? But let me tell you, I started to get real nervous. But this was like a trust the process moment because I didn't throw them out. I kept watering them, and to my surprise, finally I woke up one day to my plant growing back. And this is where I was reminded yet again that patience really is a virtue because weeks started to pass and I started to notice yellow tomato flowers finally growing on the plant. And that got me excited because I knew that meant real tomatoes would start growing out of those yellow flowers soon. And indeed they did, because one day I woke up to 3 tiny little tomatoes growing out of the yellow flowers and I was so excited. Finally, the time came where we were starting to see the fruits of our labor. Each week passed and I monitored this little plant very closely. I watched as our 3 little tomatoes got bigger and bigger, but I was wondering why there were only 3 of them, and I also started to get kind of nervous that they weren't turning red as quickly as I've experienced tomatoes to turn red before. And at this point, the entire summer had almost passed and the winter was again fast approaching. And if these things didn't turn red soon, they weren't gonna make it at all. I've never prayed so much in my life for a tomato, guys, but the plant gods clearly heard my prayers because yesterday I walked outside to see my tomatoes fully red. Finally, our experiment worked. You can imagine how excited I was and how cool this was. I couldn't believe that I actually grew my hamburger from McDonald's into a plant. That is pretty amazing. So I think I'm gonna harvest them in the next couple days, and then I gotta figure out what to do with them, so help me out with that one. I'm taking ideas. But honestly, I'm just glad to know that Mickey D's tomatoes are probably real. And now, the only thing that I'm wondering, other than if the 3 tomatoes are gonna grow arms and legs, is whether or not I can do the same thing with French fries.